deep. That's the only way to describe how far below the top layer of garbage the stirring began. The Earth finally made its choice to forcefully push on this birthing. It thought hard and concentrated intently on putting Skulk together better than ever before. The world had had enough. It took offense that Lady Baghead was using its creation for her own gains. The Earth did not want its children to suffer any longer and knew it had to make some bold choices this time around. Down below the poisonous muck, the Earth could take its time. There were hardy ingredients from the past here, from before terra firma had turned into trash and plastic. There was thoughtfulness down here, conscientiousness, even love, with no need for return. The few tree roots in the area dug far into the ground, grabbing hold of what would eventually become the beast. The magma flowing below the mantle boiled hot, cooking Skulk for as long as it could. The soil gathered the few nutrients it had left, feeding the beast, hoping he would be the catalyst of needed changes to come. Heart, head, limbs, liver, lungs, layer upon layer, the Earth took special care to form each piece from the finest materials for each specific part. The air above the Earth crackled as the ground discharged electrons. The electrons forced their way down into that deep we spoke about earlier. If any living being were near the site, it would have felt the gravity well forming, sucking in all the garbage in the area, creating a dense, thick crust of plastic. The world didn't only breathe the beast's memories into his ears as it had in the past. It took the painstaking time to pull every memory Skulk had ever had from across the world and carefully weave them through the pores of the Earth. It placed them all in excruciatingly detailed temporal order in the ogre's head, and didn't stop until every last one was neatly in place. The Earth took all it could from itself and gave it to him. Finally, deep beneath the crust, a crack of electricity shook the Earth. Once again, Skulk the hulking. But this time it was different. He felt stronger. He felt more sure of himself. He felt his inner beast call. Memories flooded his newly formed brain. He remembered the old man with the clock hands tattooed on his arms. He remembered those he saved, or attempted to save, in the village far from the city. He remembered standing up for his fellow man. He remembered how much he cared for others, and a couple times when they even cared back. He felt proud. He felt accomplished. He felt ready to finish what he started. Then he prepared to forget all these thoughts and start fresh, as always. He hadn't a bad thought under the sky. He smiled slightly and, before opening his eyes and taking on another blank slate, the beast took a deep and powerful breath of air. Except it wasn't air. His cavernous maw opened wide and was flooded with nutrient-rich soils, carcasses of non-mutated worms, and dried plant structures known long ago as grass. His lungs filled with mud and the ogre went into shock. His eyes bulged open and they too were flooded with soil. He could see nothing, made worse by the dirt burning his eyes. panic. The beast bucked like a wild horse while the earth above shook as if a small earthquake threatened to tear the ground open. The ogre frantically chose a direction and pulled himself towards what he hoped was freedom. He drove his arms possibly upward and dredged himself blindly towards a possible escape. With each push forward, he felt the rocks and soil tear through his flesh. With each drag hopefully upward, Skulk's hopes were dashed, replaced with a larger chunk of terror. While panicking felt like the most reasonable reaction, he knew he needed to stay calm if he were going to have a chance of getting out alive. He needed to make his motions mechanical and conserve his energy as best he could. Shut out the pain. He thought about the last time he was in a similar situation and accidentally knocked a building of trash onto himself. He remembered how frightened he became and how the panic was what cost him in the end. He spent the whole time... Wait. He remembered this? He remembered his inability to control himself. He remembered the uselessness of that life. He remembered his failure. Why was he remembering anything? Why hadn't he opened his eyes to a blank slate? Destruction danced like a fire in his memories. He saw everyone he accidentally killed, maimed, decapitated, pulled apart, and disappointed. He saw all those he meant to kill, maim, decapitate, pull apart, and disappoint, and didn't. He remembered the citizens booing him while he poured his heart out. He remembered people hating him. He remembered people refusing his help. Did they ever want his help? Was he the bad guy all along? He saw Hammerhands violently smashing his tattooed friend. He saw Lady Baghead smiling down on her city that she controlled so well. He even saw the Plasta oil crab scuttling towards him with a high-pitched screech. Were these the good guys? Why was he remembering? The ogre continued to flail, possibly towards the surface. But his heart wasn't in it much anymore. His arms felt as liquid as the mud that filled his lungs. He couldn't tell if it was blood or sweat that was running off his body. His life in its entirety was there for him to remember. Every mistake, every failure, everything that led him back to the same beginning. Was he really fighting for others? Or was he just trying to give meaning to himself under the guise of altruism? Skulk began to spiral down a dark hole of self-hate. Who knew if he was digging anymore? Who cared? He never had been in this headspace before. Back when he knew he'd open his eyes to a blank slate world, sure, he felt bad about things that he did. That they did. That we all did. But he knew those feelings would be gone the moment he entered the world. Who knew how long he'd have to live with these memories now? These feelings of self-hate, of uncertainty. Suddenly, his arm felt a different pain. Something harder, but not as heavy as the soil was above him. He turned his head up and saw a speck of light through the dirt. He was still digging after all. With his remaining strength, he shoved open a small hole above him as bits of plastic trash began to fall into his newly formed tunnel. He was almost free. Definitely not of his memories, but of the ground that was birthing him. Was it even worth getting out of this mess, though? Skulk saw no light at the end of this tunnel called life. He searched his memory for any decent ending. there was none. All lives ended in his own death, usually a humiliating one. The earth had overplayed its hand. Any momentary gains were overshadowed by the constant reminder that life had not been kind. To have this knowledge was to be in constant despair. The world had been over a long time now. He had just been too stupid in the past to know it. He would fight it no longer. The beast laid half-tunneled out of the earth, covered in piles of plastic, still. Done. Time passed. After some hours, something rustled the plastic above him. The ogre slightly lifted his head to see plastic bottles and containers slowly dragged out of his hole in tiny contained bursts. Bottles bounced off his face, and eventually what was the cause of this disturbance revealed itself. There, almost nose to nose with the beast, stood the tiniest, cutest, whitest little rabbit Skulk had ever seen. Skulk almost wanted to smile, but promptly vomited all of the toxic mud out of his lungs onto the poor creature. The rabbit's fur steamed with the heat of the ogre's puke, while small patches of hair fell from its back from the minor chemical burns. Skulk gathered himself. The air did not feel fresh. It felt and tasted stale, acidic. Skulk wished he had died, but without coming back. He didn't want these memories. He didn't want this pain. He didn't want to face reality. In the distance, Skulk heard an entire city celebrating his very recent passing. The crowd roared as one as they chanted death in unison. His heart shrunk inside his massive chest as the heavy weight of hatred pushed his slumped shoulders to the ground. Darkness filled the space left by his retreating spirit as the ogre gave up. The beast had finally united the people.
Show you, wanna let you know about this great new doctrine. Makes you feel good head to toe. You'll wanna eat it up, you'll want a bowl and spoon, you'll wanna yum 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 yum. You cleaned your plate, let's have some fun. There's nothing left for my brothers. You'll have to kill all the others. My face will go undiscovered. All you have to do, shine your head now. Shine your head. Shine your head now. Shine your head. Ooh, oh, God. Oh, my God. I'm such a fool, I have no clue. I'm not quite sure just what to do. I need a motto, is a mantra. Here's something new. It's digging deeper to my core. It touched my pussy, I'm a whore. If it's good, that does the raping. Only Morgan's born.